Hey everyone, this is Fariel and welcome back. This is a video response to the Happy Console Gamer, and it's about favorite best openings on PS1. Saw the video yesterday and was really cool, and seeing him and Rob talking about these games and their openings really made me to do a video response um, to talk about some of my favorites openings of the PlayStation 1, since that is a very special system to me. It's, together with the Super Nintendo, it's my favorite console of all time, and in a way it even may be my favorite at the end of the day, since it was even more than the Super Nintendo that it's the console that made me a hardcore gamer. I was already down this road with the Super Nintendo. I absolutely loved it. I love video games and everything. But in high school, between middle school and high school, it was that moment for me when I got the PS1 and I've decided, oh, this is my hobby. I love video gaming. So, and also the PlayStation 1, it's the console that I think, in a way, introduced the opening videos, something like this sort of cinematic experiences with incredible computer graphics and some sort of trailers for what you have to expect in a game or something like this. It's something that you didn't have on the Super Nintendo, for example, because the only game on the SNES that I can remember with an opening of that scale, that magnitude, was Final Fantasy VI. That was still an incredible opening, by the way. For the time, it was really amazing. But I cannot remember other games with these kind of openings. So the PlayStation 1, I don't know about the Genesis, and of course, since I had the PlayStation 1, I don't know about like the N64, the Sega Saturn, or other systems. But with the PlayStation 1, we really started to have the opening, these opening cinematics that were incredible. And I have here a selection of 10 games with great openings for me. It's not a list, they're not in order. Yes, it is a list, but they're not in order. So just going to talk about briefly each of them, so I can say why I like them so much. Because for what I can remember from back then, I don't have anything so emotional and powerful as Johnny, for example. I mean, not that I can remember. So it's just mainly like why I'm liking this game, this opening so much, even though I'm not the same level of stories. Because in a way, luckily for me, never like nothing like that happened while I was playing these games. So the first one I want to mention, it's something that they talk about, and I couldn't agree more. And it's the opening of Grandia, of course, because Grandia is one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 1. I played the game while I was in my first year of high school, and the reason, well, that game has a really special place in my heart, probably because actually I played it during that period, those weird moments when you're starting high school, you're still trying to figure out where you belong in, who you want to hang out. Like, you're still trying to understand your place in the groups and everything. So, of course, my escapism from the everyday life and the monotony of school were video games, naturally. So already like that, since I played a lot in high school, in middle school, and since the elementary, since ever. I mean, I always play video game. But between middle school and high school, the moments when I started to get really into video games, so I were hardcore. And Grandia um, was has always been very special to me. I love the story of the game. I love the music. I love the characters. I love the battle system. I love everything about Grandia. And that opening was so amazing because it shows. First of all, I have to mention the music, of course, because the soundtrack of Grandia is so phenomenal, and the music of the opening is on such a scale of epicness that I couldn't believe when I watched it. And it also shows what kind of adventure you have to expect. I mean, with this weird, like, old civilization that you're going to discover and explore and something like that. And playing the game, it's awesome. Like this story of innocence, and in a way, a story of life of these innocent kids who are just dreaming of living great adventures. And progressively, you see them growing up and living their actually adventure. So as I was saying, I really wanted to like really identify myself in Grandia because, as I said, I'm living the monotony of the everyday life, going to school. Um, that was not very exciting, and coming back home, living this great adventure by playing Grandia with these lovable characters, with amazing music, and these really interesting and awesome locations. And that opening really shows you like the task in front of you. Like this is what you're going to experience. This is the epic adventure that we have for you. It was really cool thinking about it. And as I said, Grandia is still one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 1, and it's even one of my favorite games of all time. As Zony says, was supposed to be the Final Fantasy killer. For me, it was. I mean, to me, Grandia is infinitely better than Final Fantasy VII. There's no comparison. But, of course, that's just my personal opinion, and it's my preference, so take it for what it's worth. Another legendary opening that they highlighted, of course, I mean, how can you not talk about this opening, is Wild Arms. Um, as I say, I don't have nothing as emotional like and sad also, and like Johnny was talking about with why playing Arms, what happened to him, but still remember this opening so well because that music is especially that music for me, because I always been very into Western movies, old school Western movies, in fact, like spaghetti Western, those kind of things, because both my dad and my grandfather really like this genre, and having an RPG in this steampunk Western setting was really awesome. But when for the first time did you watch that intro, you were like, "Oh my god!" Because it's so beautiful to look at it, and it's so wonderful to listen to it. I mean, that music while the main character is climbing that mountain, um, reaching to his friend, but all these other things that happen. I mean, it's such a phenomenal opening, and again, I played it almost in the same time, and it was basically the same idea because while you're in school, and then I couldn't wait to go back home and play video games most of the time, and especially these RPGs that allowed me to live these great adventures. It was just really awesome, and openings like Wild Arms or Grandias really increased my willing to play these games. Of course, I watch these intros every time I turn on the game. That goes without saying, naturally. And that opening of Wide Arms, it's I think it's timeless. I mean, with that music and that anime style, that animation was really incredible for the time. Because you have to consider, especially that Wild Arms, it's a game that came out before Final Fantasy VII, so we're still in the early days of the PlayStation. And I was in middle school at the time, and it was, for me, coming out of the Super Nintendo age and playing a game like Wild Arms and looking at the quality of that intro was really mind-blowing. It made me think like, yes, I choose the right console. I'm sorry, Nintendo, but you don't have something like this on the N64. What else do we have here? Let's move on to some survival horrors, because that's another personal favorite of mine in terms of game genre. And of course, I have to mention my favorites, probably. Among the favorites, it's difficult to say it's my favorite. But an opening that I absolutely love, it's the one from Resident Evil 1. Not 2, not 3, but Resident Evil 1. It's basically where it all started from me. Because it's the first survival horror that I played, of course, like most people, at least on the PlayStation. Um, and I think you can divide this opening into two parts. Technically, let's say this, because the first thing that what I think about the opening of the game, it's even before the real opening. It's while before the title screen, there is a really short cinematic that shows a starts agent walking in the hallway of the mansion with this weird camera moving around like this. It's really creepy actually. And all of a sudden, the agent turns around and starts screaming and running. And there is like the camera zooms to his face and his eyes with all the blood splitting. That was terrifying the first time I played it. I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. And that's just, it's not really the real opening of the game, but I always wanted to talk about this because it's something that I love. When I saw that for the first time, I said, oh boy, I'm here for the long run with these games, this is awesome. And then the real opening, we all know that the Stars helicopter coming to the mansion, looking for the Bravo team, and then especially the dogs coming after the Stars agents who are running into the woods and shooting to the dogs and running inside the mansion, and then all the story of Resident Evil 1 beginning. But especially I'm thinking about, rather than the remake, of course we're talking about PS1, but how can you not love the terrible acting of the Resident Evil 1 opening? I mean, with those real actors, and it was insane at the time. It was like watching a movie with real actors. So, but it was so over the top and incredibly cheesy in a way, but so cool. It is like that guy lifting up like the gun with the hand still there, but it was just like ripping off, and the dog running at him. It was so cool. And I still remember once, together with my friend and a good friend of ours, we were in our place in the mountains actually, and close to that there is a massive woods where you can go, like having picnics and everything and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. You can go around with bikes, and but at one point we were in a really remote part of these woods. There was like this beautiful vista and everything, but at one point there was some sort of fog coming. It was becoming quite creepy. And this friend of mine, of ours, was saying, wow, it looks like the opening from Resident Evil 1. The only thing missing is like dogs coming at us and we should running while shooting behind us. I was like, yeah, that is cool. And my brother, who hates video games, said, what the hell are you talking about, guys? But he understood. He understood because that opening is friggin' awesome. But of course, like I have to mention, like the opening of Resident Evil 2, of course, with Leon and Claire meeting up at the car, like the get down, and the massive truck coming at them. That's legendary, of course. But my favorite would always be Resident Evil 1. I mean, both that short video at the beginning and especially the big one with the Stars agents running in the woods. It's legendary. But sticking with the survival horror, I have to mention another one, and it's Parasite Eve 2. Not one because we didn't have Parasite 1 in Europe, and I played recently, so and I love Parasite Eve 1, but the one I played, the nostalgic one for me, it's Parasite Eve 2. And the opening is a bit weird. It's not like a long cinematic or anything like that, but it has this really cool cinematic feeling because that is what Parasite Eve is all about. It's the cinematic RPG, and especially like with that awesome music, because the music from all the Parasite Eve series, it's fantastic. Both 1, 2, and Third Birthday. Even though you might dislike the game overall, the music it's really cool. But the opening was really like you were about to watching and play a movie, because the way they were introducing the characters like Aya Brea, Kyle, Eve, I don't remember the name of like that guy. I don't want to spoil it, but that guy with the gunblade. Yes, there were gunblades in Parasite Eve 2. With like scenes from the game, it really felt like the opening of a movie. And but as I said, that is what Parasite Eve was famous for, this excellence for the time, these excellent openings, and this cinematic feeling. Because for me, every time I play Parasite Eve, it was like I was playing a movie. And that amazing guitars at the beginning of the game with the opening. I think the first scene was like the helicopter, um, like over this massive skyscraper or something exploding, because that's the first part of the game. But it's so awesome, and I love Parasite Eve. Um, I don't even remember very well the opening for Third Birthday, but for whatever. But yeah, of course, the opening of Parasite Eve 1 with New York City, the opera, and everything. But I love Parasite Eve 2 openings with that. As I said, it's like the intro, um, of a movie. And to conclude my survival horror um, openings, of course, I have to mention the first Dino Crisis. Um, because the second Dino Crisis maybe looked better in terms of graphics and everything, but already from that you can say that this was a different game from the first one, because it was very bright, plain day, daylight, and there are like 1,000 raptors running at the soldiers who were just shooting everywhere, and the T-Rex coming out immediately. There was no tension and no there was no build up for the big moment that was like showing the dinosaurs. And already from that was like, this opening is not as good as the first one. And that's the general feeling of the game. It's still a very good game, but it will never be as good as the first one, because the opening of the first Dino Crisis, it's night, it's foggy, it's cloudy, it's dark, and it's very atmospheric with this helicopter or plane, I don't remember now, but coming to this small island in the middle of nowhere with this special team. Not an entire army, a special team parachuting out of this plane, and with this awesome music, um, like landing to this island. But of course, the big moment is when the three main characters, Gail, Rick, and Regina, are together, ready to move to the beginning of the game. Realize that the fourth agent is missing, Cooper. And the thing is, it's awesome that immediately after, they're moving to this guy's location, who is like completely lost in the woods, probably like the wind moved his parachute or whatever. But that's where the awesomeness of this game came into play, because you can feel the ground shaking. He hears the stomping of the T-Rex approaching. You know what it is, of course. Or at least you can suspect it. But then you start to see it, and then you see the T-Rex eating this guy and roaring at the moon. It was epic. I don't like to use the word epic, but there's no other way to describe the moment when you see the T-Rex roaring. I was like, oh my god, something like this. I mean, it's such a phenomenal opening. It's really legendary to me. That's how a Dino Crisis opening should be. I still haven't seen the opening of Dino Crisis 3, but I cannot even imagine like in the spaceship with dinosaurs. I mean, what the hell were they thinking? Other phenomenal openings, and very special to me. One that I need to mention, it's of course the opening of Kudelka. This game is, to me, I don't know if you can call it an hidden gem. I have no idea, but this is the starting point of the Shadow Hearts series, one of a personal favorite of mine. I love the Shadow Hearts, and I love Kudelka. And the opening, it's absolutely fantastic, even though it's nothing special to look at. But it's so eerie, it's so atmospheric, because there's this weird music, beautiful music, but very eerie music in the background, while you see the character of Kudelka like riding a horse and coming to the place where the castle or whatever the game starts. And that is just what you see in this really stormy and dark night, this horse approaching with this really creepy music, and then all this like the Welsh name, like 1880 something Monday, and then the game begins. And so it's just really great. I mean, it's very effective. Again, it's simple in a way, and it's not even the best looking opening in terms of graphics, but it's so effective, I think, because it's absolutely um, shows what the game is all about. I mean, this really weird but eerie atmosphere. And Kudelka, it's a really amazing gem for the PS1. I think it's this again turn-based RPG in a survival horror element. It's fantastic. I love that game. I love the Shadow Hearts series. Of course, Kudelka is very difficult, so I still need to finish that game. But I love it. It's fantastic. And of course, I have to mention two more, then a very nostalgic one and my favorite. And let's go with the nostalgic one because the other two are two of my favorites actually. And actually, no, let's go with this one first. Of course, being me, how can I not mention the opening of Breath of Fire 4? Um, that was amazing for a Breath of Fire fan like me because the game that started my insane passion for Breath of Fire was 3. But 3 doesn't have much of an opening in terms of like cinematic and everything like that. There is an opening in the game, but that's different while the two miners find the small dragon. It's fantastic, but it's not what we're talking about. It's not about a real opening. Breath of Fire 4, on the other hand, has a short but amazing opening that it really caught me by surprise when I played a game for the first time, and I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. It's not about like weird emotions or being in a weird mood or anything like that. It was just you were into this beautiful world with Ryu and Nina just at the beginning, watching this massive dragon in the plains. It was just beautiful to look at it. Um, and I remember that, for example, the moment where some characters have been introduced, and especially when Ryu and party means Folu naturally for the first time. You can see that they're talking in Japanese, so I don't know what they're talking about. But when Ryu and Folu look at each other and screaming or something, I was like, this is amazing. This is awesome. Because then, especially after playing the game, that you know who Folu is and the story and the connection between him and Ryu, which is phenomenal, by the way. If you haven't played Breath of Fire 4, do it right now because it's fantastic. It's not my favorite Breath of Fire, but it's really damn cool. I mean, it's a fantastic game. And it has the best battle system of the Breath of Fire series, by the way. But that opening was just so beautiful because that is how an opening of a Breath of Fire game should be. And it was the first one to add an actual opening, like 1 and 2, for example, don't have an opening. The same with 3, it's not a real opening. And now, for the life of me, I cannot remember the opening of Dragon Quarter, even though I like that game. But I cannot remember it. But to me, the most memorable will always be 4 because it's the first one with an opening. But it was such a beautiful opening with, of course, the anime style that must be in a Breath of Fire game, but also shows how beautiful and also exciting this world is because it's such an amazing game with the dragons, Folu, and these characters, and it's just so beautiful to look at it. Like they introduced some of the characters, introduced to Ryu, to Nina, to Folu, and the dragons, and the rivalry and the connection between Ryu and Folu, the two main characters of the games. And it's fantastic. I love Breath of Fire so much, as you know, and 4, it's phenomenal. The next game, it's not among my favorites by any means, but I still like it, and it's very, very nostalgic for me because it's the first game that I actually own for my PlayStation 1. It's not the first game that I played, it's among the very first that I played, but it's the first that I actually bought. The game is called Pandemonium, and it's a side scroll, sometimes 3D, most of the time 2D with 3D characters. It's really early in the lifespan of PS1, but it was a really impressive game for the time. A platforming side scroll, And it's actually a lot of fun. It's a really fun game, and I still remember very well the opening because it's nothing spectacular. It's barely introduced the story behind this game, which is very simple. But the thing is, for the time, because this is a very early PS1, at least for me, it's the first game I bought. The graphic of the presentation, this opening was insane. I mean, I never saw anything like this. It's very simple. There's basically this witch, the main character of the game, and his jester assistant, messing around with some magic spells to create fireworks or something. They're just having fun. And all of a sudden, the jester suggests a dark spell or something. I mean, he's very intrigued by this very obviously dangerous spell that the witch will, when she casts it summon a massive frog-like creatures that eats, like it devours the city behind them and then disappears. I was like, okay. So it was really weird. It's very short, but it's so much fun, and especially so nostalgic for me because, as I said, it's the first game I bought and the first game I played intensively. Because the other game that I own was a really short driving game called Felony 1179 or something, 76, I don't remember. It was a fun game, but a really short driving game. And Pandemonium was a lot of fun. It was a really good platformer. And again, the nostalgia is very strong in this one. And for the time, it looked amazing. I mean, when I watched that, I was like, yes, I did the right choice with the PlayStation. Because up until then I was a Nintendo kid, and for whatever reason, I don't remember why, I don't remember when I bought it, I don't remember the occasion, I don't remember nothing of those days in general, but I still remember the individual games, and Pandemonium, it's super nostalgic, and if you haven't played it, I actually recommend it. I think it's on PSN or whatever, because it's a really fun um, platformer. I still need to play the second one, because there is a sequel, and still haven't managed to buy it because I just prioritized other games. But I would love to play the sequel of Pandemonium. And that opening, in its simplicity, it's a lot of fun and it's super nostalgic to me. The next two openings are among two of my favorites. So I kept my favorite for last because I love all of these equally, but these two are on like a really slightly higher ground, I think. Especially the last one. I decided to keep that for last. First, of course, I have to mention The Legend of Dragoon. The opening of Legend of Dragoon, it's incredible. Just like the entire game. I'll never be tired to praise Legend of Dragoon. I'll never be tired to yell at Sony for abandoning this game. It potentially was a huge series. They could have made sequels, prequels, spin-offs, whatever they wanted with the story, and the scope of the story, the world and the religion was massive. And the opening really, in a brief time, shows you all of this. It shows the incredible adventure in front of you. It shows how deep the story really was with this insane moments of the game, the stories, the dragoons, these weird creatures, the characters. And also at the same time, there was this phenomenal song in the background that every time I play that game, every time I turn on the PlayStation 1 with Legend of Dragoon, I always watch the opening because it's so beautiful to look at it and to listen to it. And it's such a special game to me. It will always be one of my favorites on the PlayStation 1 and among my favorites of all time because I spent so much time playing that game because I was completely into that in terms of story, characters, um, and everything about Legend of Dragoon. And that opening really blew my mind at the time. I was like, oh, wow. Because when you see like things exploding or some characters flying as the dragoons, I was like, oh my god, this is insanely good. And it was still, I think it was my second year of high school or something like that. But there was also a good friend of mine who had that game, And I should tell that story another time because now it's a bit too long. But Legend of Dragoon, it's the only game that made me skip school. There could be another video response to Happy Console Gamer for an old videos of his skipping school to play video games. Legend of Dragoon is the game that made me skip school. But that opening is legendary to me. I mean, I'll never forget that. And it really, first of all, it's really beautiful to look at it, of course, but it also like prepares you for this massive adventure in this beautiful and very interesting world that you're about to do. And please, Sony, make a sequel to Legend of Dragoon. Make more games. I heard that if the downloads on PSN are satisfactory for them, they might considering retaking the development of Legend of Dragoon 2. So please, people, download the Legend of Dragoon 2. Of course, it's not available on PSN here in Europe, of course. But so it's all up to you, American friends. Download this game. It's really good. And it really deserves at least a sequel or a prequel or whatever. It deserves more game because the potential is immense for Legend of Dragoon. And of course, it might not be original, it might not be shocking as an answer, but probably my favorite opening of the PS1 era. No surprise, I think. As I said, it's really obvious, but it's obvious for a reason. It's the opening of Final Fantasy VIII. I mean, and that's not even my favorite on PlayStation 1, because that, of course, it's Final Fantasy IX. But Final Fantasy VIII, it's a weird one for me. But that opening, it's incredible. Still to this day, when it starts with you on the beach, with the waves coming and with that music in the background, I had goosebumps the first moment. I was like, oh shit, this is awesome. But then, of course, the best moment when you start seeing Squall and Cypher fighting, and then there's all this crescendo in music and the duel coming on, and it's an incredible opening. And Final Fantasy VIII, for that reason, it's interesting that it's the first Final Fantasy game that to me really was next generation. It wasn't 7 because from like a technical point of view, like graphics and stuff, 7 wasn't impressive for me. The battle, the combat part were really well done. Of course, there was graphic, but the overworld with the blocky characters, that was really crappy for me. I was, Super Nintendo games look better than this. But like in combat was amazing, of course. But Final Fantasy VIII was really the first big game for me that made me think, now we are in the next generation. Now this is a huge step from the Super Nintendo. I mean, already the model of the characters, like in the warm-up or something like that, a combat, an opening like that, I mean, it really made me feel like, holy shit, this is the next generation where finally the PlayStation is showing what it's capable of. And there are plenty of games after that. As I said, like Legend of Dragoon, I think, came after Final Fantasy VIII. I'm not sure, but there are so many games that shows what the PlayStation 1 was capable of. But Final Fantasy VIII is the first game that actually made me think that. Because, of course, I couldn't buy games that often, so when I saw that opening, first of all, and then the game itself, I was like, man, this is the next generation. It's finally here. But again, that is the most, to me, legendary opening on the PlayStation 1. As I said, it's not an original or a shocking or surprising answer, but sometimes you don't need to shock anyone. I mean, when an opening is as cool and amazing as Final Fantasy VIII is, I mean, that's simple, because it's a really damn good opening. And the game per se, as I said, it's not my favorite Final Fantasy by a long shot. I mean, it's a good game, but I have a weird relationship with that. I started and stopped playing twice already, or maybe 3 times, I don't even remember. I still want to play it again and try to finish it, but so many games I need to play before trying again for the third or fourth time Final Fantasy VIII. But we'll see. But that is without a doubt my favorite opening on the PlayStation 1. As I say, it's not a surprise, I think, because Final Fantasy is such a well-known title, it's such a well-known series. But what can I do? The opening is simply amazing. It's incredible, especially that the first moment with the music on the beach and with the duel between Squall and Cypher really building up until the end when Squall gets injured. But it's a phenomenal opening. It's fantastic. So there you go. These are my favorite openings on the PS1. There are probably others that I'm forgetting. And as I said, and as you can see, don't have special story behind it, but you don't necessarily need them. I mean, I just explained why I love these openings. And let us know what are your favorite openings. Do a video response to Happy Console Gamer, to mine video if you want, if you need, or just leave in the comments, because it's a very interesting, actually, video. The PlayStation 1 was such a monumental system for most of us, I think, for video gaming in general. And some of the openings of this game were just amazing. So, like always, guys, thanks for watching. See you next time. Take care.